actually showing that. But then the calendar is also showing that at the end of 2008, we come up to a period that's more like 1952 through 1972. So in other words, it's not all dark. It's just that this particular year is going to be really difficult. And then you say, what good is that? Well, because I had the information a couple of years ago, I was really instructing all my students to really save money and get out of debt and stuff like that in light of what was coming. So if you knew it was coming, you'd be in better shape.
Yeah, but how many people would know it was coming?
Well, you'd be surprised how many people heard this information. At least a few million in the United States. And then the question is, if people get this information, do they pass it on? Well, in my experience, they do pass it on.
Well, that's true, too. Barbara, a year that everybody has looked at, the Mayan calendar, the 2012 time period, what if all of it is nothing? What if it's just merely a date and everything goes on as it always is?
Well, see, now the system I'm working with is not focusing on December 21st, 2012. As you know, some of the other researchers do. And I used to focus on it a lot, of the galactic alignment, which, by the way, actually occurred in 1998. The closest alignment was in 1998. And there were major, significant changes on our planet in 98 as a result of that alignment. So the issue for me is, what are we doing day by day, year by year, month by month? For me, it's not just one day. My life has never been about one day, It's about growth and change day by day.
Well, absolutely. We're going to open up the phone lines next hour. I want people to chat with you about this and also begin to talk about what they think could happen. But you know what? We could all be right and we could all be wrong. I don't think there's any clear-cut answer here, is there?
Oh, I don't think there's any clear-cut answer either. I think this is just one possible answer among many things.
Are other countries concerned about the Mayan calendar?
Oh, yes. This is a worldwide phenomenon at this point. This book came out in June, and has already gone into 14 languages. It's just being published all over the place. This is really a big deal. I mean, I don't know whether you think it's a big deal or not, but it's you remember harmonic convergence in 1987?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I was one of the creators of that because I published Jose Arguelles in order to get that information out. And if you go back to 1987, only a few million people knew about harmonic convergence. But boy, you come up 10 years later, and a lot of people could see how much we changed at that point. And so this is another harmonic convergence. It's just that it's going over a progressive period of time.
Well, I'm not sure anymore, Barbara. I look at this in different ways.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with the solar event.
Yeah. Okay, and I know what like I was in SDS and I was a peace activist in the 60s, and I fought for peace my whole life, and I never thought it would come, and I actually really believe that's going to happen.
What's going to happen?
Peace is going to come to this planet.
Peace?
Peace, P-E-A-C-E.
You really think so?
I really believe
a planet that is fought all the time.
Yeah, and if you knew me, I've been out there lecturing for 40 years about things like that, and I only started to believe that was going to happen a couple of years ago. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to have massive solar flares. As a matter of fact, speaking of peace, let's call them the Bush administration, is attempting to build a Star Wars system. And according to the Mayan Code, the reason for the Star Wars system is to shut out the universe, and to shut out the cosmos, and to shut out communication with intelligences in other realms. And those solar flares are going to blow the Star Wars system.
Well,
so it's not necessarily negative, In other words, a lot of things that I used to think are negative end up turning out to be positive. And I'm not, again, George, I'm not a Pollyanna. I think we're just in the middle of terribly, terribly difficult times. But I actually am pretty optimistic about what's going to happen.
Well, there are a lot of people who are optimistic about it as well. And, somebody just sent me a special email, a fast blast. We get a lot of those. And, they said, how come it's doom and gloom? How come it can't be enlightenment? It could be enlightenment. I think it might be.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a whole book about it. And I'm not only talking to you about it, but I actually really got into how it could happen and decoded how it could unfold year by year. And I really think that's what this calendar is all about. I think that they could actually see thousands and thousands. By the way, this calendar is older than 2,500 years. I actually think this calendar actually comes from the Vedas, the sacred scriptures of India. And I actually think this calendar is probably was created right after the cataclysm, 11,500 years ago. In other words, I think this calendar is probably more than 10,000 years old. And so those people saw something back there, as far as I can see. But what's amazing about being alive now is we're alive at a point when this is coming to a culmination.
Tell me about the world tree.
Right. The world tree, it exists in all sacred cultures as a way to journey into the upper world or the lower world through the roots of the tree or through the top of the tree. This is this tradition exists in all sacred cultures. But what Kalaman did with it is that Kalaman believes, by reading the Popol Vuh, which is basically the Mayan Bible, Kalaman believes that the world tree is what's driving this time acceleration and this evolutionary factor. And this is very interesting because as a scientist, he would never posit a theory without having a mechanism for how all this could be going on. And so he even goes further than that. First of all, he says that the world tree is driving these evolutionary cycles. And then he says that the world tree is located basically near Gabon. It's located where the 12-degree east latitude line crosses the equator, which is basically Gabon. And so this is really interesting because scientists are suddenly reporting that ion plumes, I-O-N, like ions, plumes are coming out of that part of Africa, and they're going up into the upper atmosphere, and they're causing amazing electromagnetic changes in our atmosphere. And this was just discovered just basically in the last year. And this may end up being a scientific proof for the location of the world tree.
Now, as we get close to 2012, will scientists be gathering to go over this or not?
They already are. For example, a group of scientists have discovered a basic cycle, 62 to 63 million years long, which they've identified now going all the way back to like 567 million years ago. And this 63 million year cycle exactly matches the cycle in the calendar going back to 800 million years. And so scientific proof is coming forth right now, which just amazes me.
Well, you never know. Stay with us, Barbara. We're going to open up the phone lines next. Barbara's website is called handclow2012.com. It's linked up right now at coasttocoastam.com. The book, of course, her work, The Mayan Code. Who knows what's going to happen? I want to get your thoughts on that and your questions with Barbara next on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, you've got the numbers. The phone lines are open. Let's get your take on what you think is going to happen in 2012. Or perhaps you also have a question for Barbara Hand Clow. I'm George Norrie, back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Barbara, I'm at least pretty excited about the fact that you believe that it's not over for us after 2012.
Right.
Let's go to the phones. Let's go to our wild card line. You're on Coast to Coast. It's your turn. Hi there.
Hi, George. This is Amy from Chicago.
Hello there. Amy in Chicago.
Well, my birthday is December 21st. And, Barbara, I'm going to be K-tons old on 2012? Anyway,
okay.
I have several of your books, and one of them is the Pleiadian Agenda. And I was wondering, it's been a while since I read it, but was some of the information channeled to you from the Pleiadians, or did you ever have a conscious contact with one?
Yeah, for the Pleiadian Agenda, New Cosmology for the Age of Light, was channeled by me in the fall of 1994 and the spring of 1995. And that's the only one of my books that's channeled. Certainly the Mayan Code is not. And what happened with the Pleiadian Agenda was that it was a whole cosmology regarding 9 dimensions of consciousness. And it's also a fairly scientific book, even though it's channeled. And so I spent the next 8 or 9 years trying trying to understand the book myself. There's a lot of information in it about superstring theory, quantum mechanics, and various scientific issues. And so in 2004, I wrote a book called Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, which is a scientific examination of the Pleiadian agenda. So the reason the Mayan Code is, the reason I'm bringing all this up